Welcome back to Learn Tarot from Scratch. You've already watched episode 1. You know the skeleton of tarot deck, which is 78 cards split into major and minor arcana, 4 suits, and numbers 1 through 10 carrying their own energy. Today we are zooming in on one half of this skeleton, that is major arcana. These are 22 most iconic cards in the deck. These are numbered from 0 to 21, and they represent the big life themes, the soul level lessons, the moments that define a chapter of your life, not just a Tuesday afternoon. Now, 22 cards is a lot to cover, so instead of listing off one by one like a dictionary, which honestly nobody retains, I'm going to walk you through something called the Fool's Journey. The Fool's Journey is a way of reading the major arcana as one continuous story. Card 0, that is the Fool, is the main character, representing your soul, or really anyone's soul, at the start of life's adventure. And rest of the cards, 1 through 21, are experiences, lessons, and transformation that Fool encounters along the way. Until reaching card 21, the world, that is completion card, the wholeness card, and integration. Once you see the major arcana as a story instead of a list, the cards become much easier to remember because you're not remembering 22 random concepts. You're following a plot. I've grouped this journey into 4 acts. Act 1, the innocent begins. Act 2, facing the world. Act 3, the inner descent. And Act 4, awakening wholeness. All the timestamps are in the description box. Now, let's meet our hero. So, this is the innocent journey begins. This is the journey of a fool. In the first card, that is the Fool, there is a young traveler standing at the edge of a cliff, looking up at the sky, and a small dog at their heel, a white rose in hand, and about to step into the unknown. Now, the card 0 is very significant. 0 is before any number begins. This is pure potential and unwritten and infinite power. The Fool represents new beginnings, innocence, spontaneity, and leap of faith. See, this is about leap of faith. This is the energy of saying yes to an adventure without knowing exactly how it will turn out and trusting that it will work out anyways. When the Fool shows up in a reading, it often signals start of something, a new chapter, a fresh start, maybe an invitation to take risk. If the Fool is reversed, it can point to recklessness, naivety, being unprepared, or ignoring the red flags. Then we have card 1, the Magician. In this card, a figure stands at a table holding one arm up toward the sky and one pointing to the earth, with all 4 suit symbols, the wand, the cups, the pentacles, and the sword, laid before him. Now the Fool begins to the first lesson, that you have tools. The Magician represents willpower, skill, and ability to manifest, to take an idea and turn into something real. Notice the gesture, one hand toward heaven, one toward the earth. That's the core message of this card. As above, so below. You can channel inspiration and turn it into action. When the Magician appears in a reading, it often means you have everything you need right now to begin. The resources, the skills, the timing, it's all there. The only question is whether you'll use it. If the Magician is reversed, the magic can point to manipulation, untapped talent, or poor planning. Then the journey begins to the second point, where you see a seated woman in flowing robes between 2 pillars. one black, one white, with a crescent moon at her feet guarding a hidden scroll. If the magician is conscious action, High Priestess is the opposite, and equally important. She represents intuition, mystery, and subconscious mind. She sits between two pillars representing duality, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, and she guards knowledge that isn't meant to be rushed or forced. Some things must be felt before they are understood. That is the message of this card. When this card appears, it's an invitation to stop pushing for answers and instead listen to your dreams, to your gut feelings, the things you know without knowing how you know them, your intuition. If the High Priestess is reversed, it can point to secrets being withheld from you, disconnection from intuition, or just repressed and suppressed feelings. Then we get to the next phase, that is the Empress. In this card, a regal woman reclines in a lush, abundant garden, surrounded by wheat field, wearing crown of stars. And there is a lot of possibility of anything could happen. The Empress is abundance, nature, fertility, and nurturing. After the priestess inward mystery, the Empress shows what happens when that potential is allowed to grow. She is connected to creation in the broadest sense, not just having children, but creative projects, nurturing partnerships, and surrounding yourself with beauty and comfort. When Empress appears in a reading, something in your life is in a growth phase. It might be time to nurture a project, a relationship, or even yourself, to slow down and let things ripen rather than forcing them. If the Empress is reversed, it can point to creative block, neglecting yourself, smothering, or maybe overprotecting someone. At the next step of this fool's journey, we get the Emperor, a stern figure sitting on a stone throne decorated with ram's heads, holding an ankh and an orb, armor visible beneath his robes. When Empress is organic growth, Emperor is structure. He represents authority, order, rules, and stability, the framework that holds a kingdom, a business, or life together. This card is about taking responsibility, setting boundaries, and building something that lasts through discipline and leadership. If the Emperor appears, it's called for structure. Maybe you need a plan, a routine, clear boundaries, or to step into a leadership role you've been avoiding. If the Emperor is reversed, that means rigidity, control issues, abuse of power, excessive rule following to the point of self harm. Then we have the Hierophant, a robed religious figure, sits between two pillars, two acolytes kneeling before him, and hand raised in blessing gesture. After the personal authority, the emperor, comes institutional authority. The Hierophant represents tradition, religion, education, the established systems we are taught to follow. This card isn't about blind obedience, it's about value of shared wisdom, mentorship, and structures that have stood the test of time. Sometimes following a proven path is exactly right. When Hierophant appears in reading, it might point to formal learning, joining a group or institution, or examining your own belief about tradition. Are they serving you or just inherited without question? If the Hierophant is reversed, it can mean blind conformity, rejecting tradition without reflection. So far in the Fool's journey, he has gone on an adventure, known the resources he has, become aware about the subconscious, having creativity to produce, to nurture, having discipline, and having wisdom to create certain things. In a way, we can say there is a lot of practicality, emotional understanding, and maturity the fool has gained throughout this journey. Now comes the sixth card in this journey, that is the lovers. Two figures stand beneath an angel, a sun overhead, a tree behind each of them. Adam and Eve, imagery representing union and choice. The lovers is one of the most recognized cards, and yes, it does relate to romantic relationships, but its meaning runs deeper. This card is about union and choice, aligning with your values and people, or commitments that reflect them. The angel overhead represents a higher blessing on this union. But notice both figures are still individuals standing on their own ground, in their bare form, in their true form. Union doesn't mean losing yourself. When this card appears in a reading, it often is about important relationship, but it can also represent a major choice that requires you to align your head and your heart. If the lovers is reversed, it means imbalance in relationships, difficult choices, or disconnection. Then we have the seventh card, the Chariot. An armored figure stands in a chariot pulled by two sphinxes, one black, one white, moving forward through sheer will despite no visible reins. Act 1, the innocent journey. The chariot completes this journey through victory of willpower, determination, and self discipline. Notice these two sphinxes, one black, one white, pulling in different direction. Yet the charioteer moves forward anyway through focus and control. That's the lesson. You can hold opposing forces and still move ahead with determination. When the chariot appears in a reading, it signals forward momentum, but momentum that comes from your effort and focus, not from luck. So stay on the course you are on. And if the chariot is reversed, it can point to lack of direction, loss of control, or maybe scattered energy. So that was Act 1. Our fool has gone from pure potential to discovering personal power, inner wisdom, creative abundance, structure, tradition, connection, and finally to move forward. Notice the pattern. These cards represent external world, the system, relationships, forces around us. But the journey is about to turn inward. Now we come to the Act 2, facing the world. We have cards 8 to 14. Now, Act 2 is where Fool begins to face internal and external tests. This is where character is built through patience, solitude, fate, and learning to pause. With the card 8 of Strength. In this card, a woman is gently closing the mouth of the lion, or maybe showing affection, an infinite symbol above her head, calm dominance, not force. After the victory of the chariot, the strength teaches a different kind of power, inner strength, courage, patience, compassion, and quiet confidence. Look at this image. She's not fighting the lion, she's calming it gently with bare hands. That's the message. True strength isn't about overpowering, it's about mastering yourself with grace. When this card appears in reading, you may be facing something that feels intimidating, but the card reassures you that calm and patient courage will get you through, not the aggression. And if this card is reversed, it points to self doubt, low confidence, and using force instead of patience. Might be showing your weakness. Then we have the hermit. In this, an old man stands alone on a snowy peak, holding a lantern with six pointed star inside. staff in hand, a figure of solitary wisdom. The hermit withdraws from the world and looks inward. This card basically represents solitude, introspection, and wisdom that can only be found in quiet reflection. He's not isolated forever. He's holding up a light, both for himself and for others who might follow later. This is a card of pause for self discovery and self introspection. And when the hermit appears, it's an invitation to step back from the noise, from social obligations, group opinions, and spend time alone with your own thoughts. The answer you are looking for is inside, not outside. If the hermit is reversed, it can point to isolation, loneliness, withdrawal as avoidance, or refusing to take help. Then we have the Wheel of Fortune. The great wheel turns in the sky, surrounded by mythical creatures and symbols, with figures rising and falling around its rims. The Wheel of Fortune represents cycle, fate, turning point, the constant motion of life where fortune rises and falls. This card reminds us nothing stays the same forever. Good times and hard times. Both are temporary phases of a larger cycle. What goes down will come back up, and vice versa. When this card appears in a reading, possibly expect change in your outside world, things that are outside of your control. The lesson is to flow with the cycle rather than resist it, knowing that change itself is the only constant. If this is reversed, it can point to bad luck, resistance to change, or feeling stuck in a negative cycle. Then we have justice. In this, a robed figure sits between two pillars, holding a sword upright in one hand and a balanced scale in the other. Justice represents truth, fairness, cause and effect. When tarot readers often call karma, this is actually really simply about the principle that actions have consequences. The sword represents clarity and truth, cutting through illusion, and the scales represent weighing fairly without bias. If this card appears, it points to a decision, a legal matter, or a situation where fairness and accountability matters. It can also mean you put into a situation that is now coming back to you, for better or for worse. If this is reversed, it can point to dishonesty or avoiding accountability and unfairness. Then we have the hanged man. The man hangs upside down by one foot from the wooden beam. His expression is calm, a halo of light around his head, suggesting enlightenment, not suffering. This is one of the most understood cards. The upside down position looks alarming, but his face is peaceful. This card is about surrender, pause, and gaining a new perspective by literally seeing things from different angles. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is nothing. Stop pushing, stop pulling, just let go of the control. The answer often comes when you stop forcing it. So, when this card appears in a reading, it is a sign to pause, to surrender control of the situation and look at it from a completely different point of view. It means don't force action right now, just see how things flow. And if this card is reversed, it can point to resistance to change, feeling stuck without growth. Then we have the death card. In this card, a skeletal figure in armor rides a white horse, carrying a black flag with white rose on it, and sun rises in the background between two towers. Okay, so let's address this card directly. Death does not mean literal death. First of all, let's clear that out. In tarot, this card represents transformation, ending of something and transitioning of something, the natural conclusion of one phase so the other phase can begin in your life. Notice the sunrise in the background? Even as this figure rides through, something new is dawning. Endings and beginnings are part of the same process. When this card appears, something in your life is ending, maybe a job, a relationship, an old identity, or a habit. It might feel uncomfortable, but it's making space for what comes next. Resisting it usually causes more pain than accepting it. And if this is reversed, it means you are resisting change, or fearing letting go, or maybe you're prolonging the ending, the suffering. Then we have the Temperance card. In this card, an angel stands with one foot on land and other in water, pouring liquid between two cups in a continuous flowing motion. So, after the intensity of the death, the Temperance brings balance, moderation, and patience. This card is about blending, finding the middle ground, integrating the opposites, and moving forward slowly rather than all at once. The angel pours water between two cups without spilling a drop, representing harmony achieved through care and patience. So, when this card appears, it's all for balance between work and rest, between two paths, or between two extremes we've been swinging between. Healing and integration takes time, and that is okay. And when this card is reversed, it can point to imbalance or excess of something, maybe impatience. So let's recap this act 2. In this, our fool learned inner strength, solitude, the rhythm of life cycle, fairness and consequences, surrendering, transformation, and balance. Notice the shift, these cards are much more internal. They are about how you respond to life, not just what life throws at you. We are now entering the darkest part of the journey, Act 3. This is where the fool confronts the shadow. Now we are entering the Act 3. This is the inner descent from card 15 to 18. This act is short, only 4 cards, but they're some of the most powerful and feared cards in the deck. We have the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon. This is where the Fool confronts fear, illusion, shadow, and hard truths before emerging transformed. So, with the Devil card, in this card we have the horned figure that looms over two chained human figures. But look closely, the chains are loose enough to slip off. In this card, the devil represents the shadow self. This relates to addiction, materialism, unhealthy attachments, and all the parts of ourselves that we would rather not accept about it or do not want to look at. Here's the key detail, those chains around the figure's neck, they are loose. We could remove them at any time. The devil represents bondage that's largely self imposed, the habits and patterns we have convinced ourselves we cannot escape. When the devil appears, it's asking what's really keeping you stuck. Often it's not an internal thing or an external thing, it's purely a belief or fear you have, and you have the power to release it. If this card is reversed, it means release from unhealthy patterns, breaking free, and regaining the control. Then we have the tower. In this card, a tall tower is struck by lightning, its crown on fire, with two falling figures from the structure as it crumbles. Now, if there's one card that makes people nervous, it's this one. But this represents sudden upheaval of structure, belief, or a situation that just collapsing. But here's the reframe. The tower was built on faulty foundation. The lightning strike is revealing the truth. Something painful, so something more stable and authentic can be rebuilt. And when this card appears, it usually means a sudden shakeup, a revelation, an unexpected event, a plan falling apart. This card is disruptive, yes, but it's also liberating. What falls away wasn't built to last anyway. And when the tower is reversed, it points to avoiding inevitable change, fearing a disaster, delaying unnecessary collapse. Then we have the star. This is one of the most beautiful cards. In this card, a woman kneels by the pool of water, pouring water from two jugs, one onto the land and one in the pool, under a sky filled with stars. Now, after the tower's collapse and chaos, the star arrives with deep breath. This card represents hope, healing, inspiration, and renewal after the storm. She pours water onto both land and water, nourishing everything around her. This represents a generous, healing presence. The star above represents guidance, hope, and a sense that you are not alone. So, when this card appears, it's giving you reassurance that healing is happening, even if this is very slow and gradual. There's hope on the horizon, and inspiration is returning after a very difficult period. And if this card is reversed, it represents loss of faith, disconnection from hope, or feeling a lot of despair. Then we have the moon card with a large moon with a face, looms over a path that's leading toward a distant mountains, flanked by a wolf and dog that is howling, and with a crayfish or scorpion appearing from the pool. Now, the moon represents illusions, the fear, the unconscious fears that we have, the part of a situation that aren't fully clear yet, and moonlight distorts it. It makes shadows look like monsters. This card often points to anxiety, uncertainty, or a fear of the unknown, feeling that loom larger in the dark than they would be in the daylight. It can also represent dreams or intuition, messages from subconscious. So when this card appears, things may feel unclear and unsettling, but this card is asking you to notice what's fear based illusion versus what's real. Often, what we fear in the dark looks very different in the light. And when this card is reversed, it points to release from that anxiety or clarity coming in your life. Or the repressed emotions, they are resurfacing. So, let's recap this Act 3. This was the darkest stretch of the journey, confronting the shadow self with the devil, surviving sudden collapse with the tower, finding hope again with the star, and facing fear and illusion with the moon. But here's the beautiful thing about tarot: after the descent always comes the dawn. Our final act is about awakening, clarity, and wholeness. Now, to the final act of the Fool's journey, the awakening and wholeness. We have just three cards left, and they are some of the most joyful cards in the entire deck. This is where our Fool emerges from shadow and transformed, and the journey reaches its conclusion. Let's start with the Sun card. In this card, a radiant sun shines over a joyful naked child while riding a white horse surrounded by sunflowers, which are pure and unguarded happiness card. So after the dim, the uncertainty of the moon, the sun arrives in full brightness. This card represents joy, clarity, vitality, and success. Everything is illuminated and nothing is hidden. Notice the childlike figure, open, unguarded, joyful, without complication. This is the energy of genuine happiness and clarity after a period of confusion. So when this card appears, it's one of the most positive cards you can pull. This means things are going well or are about to. Clarity is coming your way and you are going to enjoy every moment of it. If the sun card is reversed, it means there might be delayed success or clouded joy, or maybe some setbacks are there. Then we have the Judgment card. In this card, an angel blows trumpets over figures rising from the graves, arms raised, as if calling a great call, an awakening moment. Judgment represents awakening, reflection, and reckoning, not in a punishing sense, but in the sense of wake up call, the moment of clarity where you see your life choices and path with fresh eyes. This card often involves looking back at where you've been, reviewing, realizing what no longer serves you, and kind of answering an inner calling. When this card appears, it signals to a turning point, a moment of realization, a reckoning with the past, or a call towards next chapter that you can't ignore. If this card is reversed, it means self-doubt, judgment, or avoiding necessary reflection. This can also mean indecision. Then we have the final card, the World card. In this, a figure is dancing within a wreath, holding two wands surrounded by four figures in the corners representing four elements. And here we are. The world represents completion, integration, fulfillment. The fool's journey has come a full circle. The figure dances at the center, surrounded by four elements we talked about in episode 1: wands, cups, swords, pentacles, fully integrated, whole. When this card appears, it represents the successful completion of a major life chapter, a goal achieved, a cycle finished. And after this card, the Fool begins a brand new journey. If this card is reversed, it can mean to incompletion, delays, or feeling something is unfinished and seeking closure. So that's the entire Major Arcana, 22 cards, one story. Let's have a quick recap of all the four acts. In Act 1, the innocent begins. Our fool discovers personal power, intuition, abundance, structure, tradition, and willpower. In Act 2, facing the world, the fool gains inner strength, solitude, life cycles, fairness, surrender, transformation, and balance. In Act 3, the inner descent, confronting the shadow self, surviving the sudden upheaval, finding hope, facing fear and illusion. And the final act, 4, awakening and wholeness, joy and clarity, reflection, and finally, completion. Here's the big takeaway: whenever you pull a major arcana card in a reading, ask yourself, where in this journey does this card sit? Is it an early journey card about discovery, middle journey card about endurance, a descent card about shadow work, or a final card about integration? That alone gives you a huge head start on interpreting it. With that, you can try this method for yourself. You can separate them from the rest of the deck and then pull out one card and ask yourself, where does my life feel like it's at in relation to this card's place in the journey? With that, if you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. With that, see you next time.